They chose the most impossible place on Earth, a saddle between two peaks where the mountain itself wanted to slide away. No wheels, no draft animals, no iron, just human muscle and the will to stack stones against the sky. Each stone was carved individually to fit its neighbor like a puzzle. No two blocks the same, no mortar needed. One wrong shift of the lever and the stone falls, taking half the wall with it into the abyss. They built the water system first, every channel and fountain carved into the mountain before a single temple wall rose. The stones fit so perfectly that after 500 years you cannot slide a razor blade between them. They built soil on a mountain, carrying earth up cliffs to grow food at the roof of the world. Every stone arrived here by hand, every angle calculated by eye, every risk accepted because the mountain demanded perfection. They built staircases into vertical rock and then ran on them. Every messenger was also a mountaineer. They brought water from the mountain peak to every fountain and every terrace. The city breathes because the mountain still drinks. No wheels, no iron, no draft animals, just wood, stone, and the understanding that leverage is older than any empire. They built drainage before they built walls, because on a mountain, water is more dangerous than gravity. The windows are shaped like the sun's path, and they built homes that followed the light, not the other way around. They understood that a building is only as strong as what sits beneath it, so they beat the earth into submission before placing a single stone. Every wall has a heart. They buried offerings in some masonry. They did not fear the drop, and they had crossed these bridges since childhood, and the stone was lighter than the risk of failing the city. They had no written numbers, so they measured with string, the sun, and a memory passed from father to son for generations. When that stone settled, the mountain accepted the city, and the builders became ancestors who still watch from every wall. Water was the real engineer here, as they carried it the peak down to every... They built canals that could whisper, no splash, no waste, just the mountain giving back what the rain had loaned it. Every handful of dirt came from somewhere lower. Then they grew food on the edge of heaven, because the valley could not feed the city. They built without mortar. Every stone was a puzzle piece, cut to hold its neighbor hostage for eternity. They understood that a building must dance with the earth. If the ground shakes, the walls must sway, not shatter. They sealed the roofs with the bones of the sea, carried 3,000 meters up because the mountain could not keep out the rain alone. The water did not just fall. It came through the mouth of a serpent, because every drop was... They learned that a straight wall falls, but a wall that leans inward holds the earth back forever, like a child pressing against a storm. The sun told them when to plant, when to harvest, and when the mountain would demand a sacrifice of silence. They did not fight the mountain, and they listened to where it wanted to break, and the stone gave itself to the earth's bones. Each roller was carried up the mountain by men who had already carried 100 stones, and the real weight was never the granite. They did not have iron, but wet sand and patience cut deeper than any blade ever forged. The mountain groaned like a wounded animal when the wood swelled inside its bones, and then it surrendered. A city built on a razor's edge needs flat ground, so they made it, one basket of rubble at a time, until the cliff became a foundation. They knew the mountain would cry during the rains, so they built veins to carry its tears away before they could wash the city into the valley. One knot, one slip, one gust of wind, and a year of work disappears into the abyss. The terraces were not just gardens. They were the mountain's ribs, holding the earth inside a stone cage so the soil would not run away with the rain. The doorway narrows as it rises, because a house that shakes must be built like a dancer, flexible enough to... At sunset, the work stopped, and the mountain reminded every man that he was building for something older than himself. They heated the rock until it glowed, then threw cold water against the fire, and the mountain screamed as it broke open, making room for a passage that had never existed before. The city never floods because they built veins beneath the ground, giving the mountain's tears a path to escape without destroying what the hands had made. Every block passed through 20 hands before it reached the top, a chain of men who never saw the final wall but trusted that their fingers were part of something larger.
He is not cutting stone, he is signing it.
The wall leans inward on purpose because the mountain pushes back, and only a wall that bows slightly can stand against the weight of a hillside. This tower was not built to watch the sun, it was built to trap the light, so the solstice would enter through the eastern window and touch the altar. One slip, and the mountain takes you. But they built here anyway, because the gods lived in the space between the ground and the sky, and they wanted to live closer. They did not bring water to the mountain, where water already breathed through the rock. The empire did not fall because they were weak. It starved because they stored enough food for 3 reasons. They did not dig deep, Orinisilf, they built wide, because the mountain was already the foundation, and a city the work stops when the sun falls, but the mountain never sleeps, and neither does the memory of what was built here, waiting for someone to remember why. The stones do not fit because they were carved perfectly. They fit because the clay between them remembers the shape of the rock. They did not invent the wheel to carry stones, but they understood that a log rolling downhill moves faster than any king's command. The wall is not straight because they wanted it beautiful. It is straight because a crooked wall would when the earth shakes.
Every fountain in this city has a different sound. The rich hear a deep gurgle.
Even in the middle of a mountain, building a city.
The water will run here for 1,000 years, but only if the grass holds the soil. The stairs are not for the dead. They are for the living, carrying the weight of the mountain on their shoulders. One mistake, one rope that snaps, and the stone falls for 1,000 feet, but they never drop it. The boy will not remember the stone. He will remember the way his father's hand looked, holding the water. They did not build a city that would last forever. They built a city that would last until the last person who remembered. Water does not argument with the mountain. It finds the path the mountain already carved, and these men simply followed its memory with their hands. They did not invent the wheel because the stone taught them patience instead, and patience fits stones together better than any wheel ever could. The city could not rise without the women who carried water while the men carried stone, and the children who watched learned what strength looks like. They built scaffolding not to reach the sky, but to reach the exact spot where the mountain needed one more stone, and they trusted wood to hold their weight. The mountain does not give up its secrets easily. You have to enter its darkness with nothing but fire. They built with the sun as their level and the stars as their plumb line, and when the shadow was right, the stone was placed, and the mountain approved. Even building a city for the gods is still work, and work needs food and laughter, because they did not only build for the sun, they built for the rain that would come for centuries, and the water would flow away. The stone does not want to leave the ground, but the will of 100 men is heavier than any rock, and the mountain knows when it has been outnumbered. They did not celebrate when the last stone was set, and they simply looked at the mountain, and the mountain looked back. They did not fear the height, they respected it, because one wrong step and a man would become part of the canyon, remembered only by the wind. His hands did not feel the pain anymore. They had become tools themselves, calloused beyond feeling, but still history. Knowledge passed not through books but through fingers on stone, the old man's hands guiding the young ones. And the scaffolding groaned like a living thing, and every man on it knew that the vines could hold or they could snap, and faith was the only rope between them and the valley. They built the city with the mountain's own bones, and the walls did not stand apart from the rock. The lever was not a machine, it was an extension of their will, and when the wood bent, they bent with it, knowing
The city did not just need stone, and so they carried soil on their backs up this mountain.
The smallest stones were not forgotten, they were chosen, each one fitted like a missing tooth in a jaw, and the wall bit into the mountain with every piece.
The road did not fight the mountain. It listened to it. The mountain did not give them good weather. It gave them storms, and they learned to build through the cold. Water did not fall from the sky here. It was carried through stone veins.
The roof beams came from valleys they could not even see from here. Yet every log arrived exactly when needed, because
they did not fear heights. They befriended them, carving steps into the abyss so that even the gods could not find a path the Inca had not already claimed.
The women did not lift stones, but they held the city together, each strand of grass becoming a rope that would drag grass.
They learned that stone alone would crumble without binding, so they burned rock to make glue. The children did not play during construction. They learned. Each stone they carried, teaching them that a city is not.
They left one stone unfinished on purpose, a doorway for the spirits to enter, because a city built only for the living would be empty when the dead came to visit. The rain was not their enemy, it was their teacher, and every channel they carved told the water where to go before the water had decided to fall.
They did not have machines, but they had leverage, and a single log placed right could move 1,000 pounds.
Every night they left the city unfinished, because a dream carved in stone does not sleep until the last block is placed. They turned 1,000 men into one machine, and the only engine they needed was the trust that the next man would catch what they threw. The water could have gone straight, but the architect chose to go around the rock, because nature does not apologize for being in the way, and neither should the builder. They buried their engineering underground where no one would see it, because a great city does not boast about its plumbing, it just never floods. Every stair was a conversation between the foot and the stone, and the mountain decided how steep the conversation would be, not the builder.
They washed the stone not to clean it, but to see if the stone was worthy of being seen, because water reveals what the eye overlooks.
They built the pathways tight so no army could march through, and every man became a single soldier.
The hammer does not break the stone. It teaches the stone where to sit, and every blow is a lesson the rock will never forget.
They cut the holes before they cut the beams, because knowing where the weight will fall is more important than knowing where the roof will sit. Every circle they carved was a reminder that the sun would return, and a city built on the edge of a cliff needed to remember that the light always came back. They built on the edge because they knew the edge was where the earth remembered how to hold, and a city that hugs the cliff will never forget the ground beneath its feet. The water does not scream when it is guided, it sings, and a city that listens to its water will never drown in its own pride. They did not paint the walls because they were bare. They painted them because the stone had a story to tell, and the door is not finished until the stone above it knows exactly how much weight it must carry. Every stair was a conversation between the foot and the cliff, because the mountain does not give you a path, it only agrees to let you make one.
The roof will outlast the wood that holds it, because the grass knows how to bend while the beam only knows how to break, and a city that learns to bend will never shatter.
The stone does not care how tired you are. It only knows that you are the next pair of hands.
The walls do not hold because they are strong. They hold because the gaps are filled, and a city that ignores its cracks will... From up here, the world looks like a blanket stitched together by human hands, and every thread is a life that decided to stay instead of fall.
The last stone is not the end of the building. It is the moment the building finally decides to stay, and when the stone sits...
The water does not find its own way here. Every drop is guided by a hand that will never drink from it, and that is the price of living on a mountain.
A foundation is not dug by machines. It is dug by men who trust the man above them to catch what they cannot hold.
The stone does not break where you want it to, and a man who does not listen to the rock will never hear its answer. The mortar is not made in the wall. It is made on the backs of women who climb,
until their legs forget what and the stone begins to move. The only thing faster than its weight is the prayer of every man beneath it, and a broken pole means a broken man. The water cannot stay. If it does, the mountain will swallow its own city. So they taught the rain to leave before it learned to destroy. A granary is not a room. It is a promise that winter will not win, and every sealed stone is a door held shut against hunger. The stairs were not built for comfort. They were built for men who knew that falling was not an option, because the mountain does not forgive a misstep. The wall does not fight the mountain. It bends like a river around a stone, and that is why it has stood longer than any empire that built it. When the sun leaves, the stone does not mourn. It waits, because it knows the men will return. The platform does not creak as a warning. It creaks as a conversation, and the men have learned to read every sound like a language of survival. Water is not the enemy here, stillness is, and every stone they move below ground is a prayer against the mountain swallowing its own children. The stone does not break where you want it to. It breaks where it was already waiting, and the cutter is just the one who asks the question.
The child does not know he is building a city. He only knows his hands are full, and that is enough to make him part of something larger than himself.
The tunnel breathes with the mountain, and every swing of the chisel is a heartbeat measured in stone dust and sweat. When the last stone is set, the terrace is not finished. It is just born, and the soil will decide if it lives or dies. The lever does not multiply strength, it multiplies hope, and sometimes hope is the only thing heavier than the stone.
The man on the wall does not think about falling. He thinks about the next handhold.
The cord does not lie, it only shows the truth of the line, and the surveyor knows that a city built crooked will fall crooked.
The mountain does not sleep, it only waits, and when the men are gone, it remembers every stone they placed.
The water does not ask permission to flow, it only follows the path we carve, and the man hanging from the rope trusts the knot more than the mountain. The mortar does not hold the stones together, it only fills the spaces where doubt might grow, and the builders know that a wall built without faith will crumble in the first rain. The doorway is not an opening, it is a decision, and every stone placed above it must carry the weight of what passes beneath. The peg does not hold the stone, it holds the memory of where the stone belongs, and when the peg is removed, the stone will forget.
The wall does not fight the mountain, it learns its shape, and the stones that fit the best are the ones that surrendered to the curve.
The plumb line does not judge, it only reveals what is true, and the builder who ignores it builds a prison for his own mistake. The stone does not remember the fire, but it remembers the water, and in that memory, it becomes harder than before. The pattern does not exist in the stone, it exists in the mind that sees it, and the mason is only a messenger between the invisible and the visible.
The bridge does not begin with the first stone, it begins with the man who is willing to cross the empty space. And that... The city is not finished, it is only waiting, and the men who built it tonight will wake tomorrow to...
The stone does not scream when it is split, it whispers, and the shim is the interpreter that translates the mountain's language into the language of walls. The water does not need to be conquered, it needs to be convinced, and the channel is the argument that persuades the mountain to share its veins. The path to the top is not measured in distance, it is measured in the number of times a man must decide not to stop. The wall does not only hold the earth back, it also lets the earth breathe, and the man who carves the hole knows that strength...
The floor does not care who walks on it, but the men who laid it care that no one will ever notice they were here, and that is the highest form of pride. The foundation is not built by the strongest man, it is built by the chain, and every man in that chain knows that if one hand fails, the stone falls on all of them.
The eye can be fooled by distance, but the straight-edge cannot, and the mason trusts the tool more than his own. The roof does not need to be seen to hold, it only needs to be believed. And the
A beam does not care if we fall, but we care. And that is the difference between us.
The day ends, but the stone does not sleep, and the hammer does not rest. The water does not ask permission to flow, but we have learned to ask it politely, and when we build the channel just right,
The stone is passed from hand to hand, each man sharing the burden, and in that chain there is no king, no peasant.
A single hole in the wall can save an entire city from drowning, because the mountain does not forgive a blocked path. It simply finds another way through.
The walls do not need to be straight to stand, they only need to agree with each other, and these two have been leaning toward one another for centuries before the roof even touched them.
The mountain does not grow food by nature, but by invitation, and we have carved these steps as a ladder for the sun to...
The plaster does not hold the stones together by strength, but by patience, because clay takes days to...
The door frame waits for its capstone like a math waiting for its last word, and when the lintel finally seats itself.
The path is not wide enough for two men to pass, but it is wide enough for one man to carry the future on his back, and that is all the room we need.
The mason does not teach with words. He teaches with the placement of his hand, because a stone will forget a command.
The edge of the mountain is not where the work ends. It is where the work begins.
The water does not ask permission to flow, but we have learned to ask it politely, and when we build the channel, the mountain has bones, and we are carving tunnels through its ribs, because the fastest path is sometimes a beam that weighs more than 10 men must be carried by 20, because the mountain will not forgive a single hand that lets go, and neither will the men below. The perfect fit is not born from the first cut, it is born from the 100th adjustment, because a wall that breathes with the mountain will never need to scream in the earthquake.
Before the stone is laid, the earth must be thanked, because the builders knew the mountain was not material.
The wall is not straight because the builder could not make it straight. It is curved because the mountain itself is curved, and a wall that fights the mountain will always lose.
Even the stone roads have choices, and the new man must learn which path leads to the temple.
Fire and water are not enemies. They are the mason's secret tools.
From here, the city looks like it was always here, like the mountain grew these stones itself.
They did not fear the height, they respect it, because one wrong step and a man would become part of the canyon, remembered only by the wind. The lintel must sit perfectly or the door will never close, and the builder learns that a mistake at the top is only discovered when the weight already presses down. The stairs do not go straight up because the mountain does not allow straight lines, and the builder who fights the slope will only build a staircase that no one can climb. The water must fall at exactly the right speed. Too fast, and it will erode the channel. Too slow, and it will never reach the fields below. The room is small and the window is narrow, but the light enters at the exact moment of sunrise, and the builder who carved this window knew.
A stone disc is not a wheel, it is a pivot, and the rope that turns it will lift water or close a door. The foundation is dug into the mountain itself, and the deeper it goes, the more the mountain holds the building.
The circle narrows as it climbs, and each stone must be cut at a slightly different angle, because the builder who makes a curved wall understands. The day ends, and the mountain does not fall, and the workers eat their meal in the shadow of what they built.
The king did not carry a single stone, and the man sitting at the edge knows that the mountain remembers who truly built it.
The water does not run wild here. Every drop is given a path and a purpose. He does not measure with a ruler. He measures with the sound of stone against stone, and the click is the only proof he needs that the fit is exact. The platform is tied to nothing but faith and twisted fiber, and the men on it do not look down, because looking down is the fastest way to fall.
Every handful of dirt that grows their food had to be carried up this mountain.
The wood does not fight the stone. It simply grows inside the crack until the stone has no choice but to break.
The wall does not block the water. It invites the water to pass through.
The tunnel is not for walking. It is for the sun to mark the solstice, and the light that reaches the end is the only calendar the builders trusted. The beam is for the roof of a temple that will outlive every man carrying it, and they know this, and they carry it anyway.
The room does not need to be beautiful. No one will live in it. but they polish the stone anyway. Because
The city is finished, and the builders have gone home, and the mountain holds what they made in silence.
The wall is not complete until something is given to the earth that held it, and the leaf is not a payment, it is a promise.
The staircase was not built for comfort. They were built for men who knew that falling was not an option, because the mountain does not forgive a misstep.
The knot records what the jar holds and where it came from, and the man who ties it trusts the string. The city is not built on the mountain by accident. Every door,
Convenience. The corridor is narrow so that only one person can pass at a time, and I realize it is not about inconvenience. It is.
they are not just resting, they are reminding each other that the work is not the only reason they are here. The water does not care about the city, it only cares about the path of least resistance. So the builder must trick.
The light will hit this exact spot only twice a year. The man who built this window will be dead before the next alignment, but he built it anyway.
the city is not finished. A city is never finished, but the day is.
I stand in a place that was never meant for me, but the stones do not care. The mortar is made from the mountain itself, crushed and mixed with water until it becomes a glue that the rain cannot dissolve. The tunnel was cut from both ends, and the men who carved it met in the middle with less than a finger. The platform is held by 3 ropes, and the man working does not look down, because looking down means remembering how far the fall is. The storehouse holds enough food to feed the builders for 3 winters, and the woman counting the grain knows every.
The lever is older than the city, older than the empire, older than the memory of the first builder.
The blood and the drink and the prayers all go into the same place, down into the mountain where the Earth Mother waits.
The sun tells the mason where the window must go, and the window tells the room when to wake and when to sleep.
Days. The llama does not know it is building a city. It only knows the rope pulls and the road is long, and the builder does not tell us. The cistern holds the rain that the mountain gives, and the mountain give only as much as it can spare, and the city survives. The gate opens every morning and closes every night, and the men who pass through it are building something that will outlive their children's children. The room is dark for 11 months of the year, but on one morning the sun pours through this crack like a spear.
The water does not fall straight down, because straight down would destroy the terraces below, so the builders gave it a path.
The tunnel was not built for giants. It was built for men who knew that every inch of stone removed.
The storehouse breathes like a lung, drawing in the cold night air and pushing out the heat of the day, and the corn stays dry for years.
The staircase does not ask if you are afraid of heights. It simply offers you the choice of going up or going. The ancestors do not leave the city when they die, and they stay in the hall and watch over the living. The work stops when the sun touches the western peak, because the mountain does not give light for free, and the men eat together in silence. The boy draws the mountain because one day he will be the one who builds on it, and his teacher does not correct him. The bridge is made of grass and wood and the faith of every man who crosses it, and the builders did not test it with stones, they tested it. The city is finished, but the men who built it will not live to see it forgotten, and the mountain will keep its secret for 500 years.